There are bikes that cater to a really broad audience, and then there are the more niche products with titanium frames or a gearbox or lately plus tire hardtails. Mix all of those things together and you get a bike for a very specific buyer. This is the Pilot Locum Pinion, a titanium gearbox bike that's remarkably versatile. Pilot Cycles is a relatively new brand from the Netherlands, and they only do hand-built titanium frames. Now you can choose between going with a full-on custom build or getting an off-the-shelf bike like the Locum that I have here. Now, being handmade and using some high-end components, these bikes are not for budget shoppers. The one I have behind me here is actually around 8,300 euros. For that price though, you do get one of the most fun bikes that I've ever ridden. So to do my testing with the Locum, I mostly took it on really long cross-country rides because this is like an adventure bike. But I would often encounter a skate park, so I went to the skate park with this. I encountered some street spots, so I did street riding with it. I would sometimes come across a really poor excuse for a bike park, so I went there with this bike, and it did all of those things really well. So let's have a look at the Locum Pinion. This is a beautifully constructed high-grade titanium hardtail. Now there are no sharp edges anywhere. The titanium is welded really beautifully all around, and just the general attention to detail far surpasses any bike that I've ever ridden. Things like the milled out logo on both the head tube and the chainstays is just out of this world. Another really cool thing is the split seat stay at the rear, and I actually didn't even see that it was there because it's done to such tight tolerances with such incredible attention to detail. Now as you can see, this bike is pure titanium. There's not a single splat of paint on the entire frame. Instead, what Pilot does is anodization, which is basically using electricity to create some sort of rust on the bike in whatever color you want really. Now the cool thing is this won't scratch and it won't wear off or bleach over time. And because there's no paint on the bike, if you do end up scratching it, you can just get some Scotch-Brite and get your bike looking as good as new again. So like with my previous bike review, due to the weather here in Belgium, I mostly took it on really muddy rides. And because my average speeds were quite low, I was actually pretty pleased with the rather steep 69-degree head angle. The bike is plenty long though, so you do get this nice combination of high-speed stability, but also the agility that you need in the typical Belgian mud bogging that we do here. Now I personally love the geometry on the Locum, but if it's not for you, you can pay an additional 250 euros and get custom geometry. So not only will the bike fit your body perfectly, but it will also fit the riding you do. Now, the Fox Float Factory 34 was an absolute joy to both ride and to mess around with. You see, because you have these massive plus-size tires, a lot of the small bump stuff actually comes from the tires, so you end up tuning the tire before you tune the suspension. And so having all the adjustability with the Fit4 damper is awesome. Now what's really neat is that Pilot Cycles will let you choose your own tires. So you can get 2.8 or 3-inch wide Rocket Rons or Nobby Nics, and free tubeless from the factory, so a lot of companies can really learn from that. I have the Nobby Nics here because obviously it's winter. In summer I'd go with the Rocket Rons. Now a lot of you might think that having these big tires is going to make the bike feel sluggish and unresponsive and hard to position. And with some of those bikes you'd be right, but actually I have the optional tuned Blackburner Plus rims on here. These are carbon fiber rims, they're really lightweight, really great hubs as well. So these Blackburner rims, they're 43mm internal width and 50 on the outside, so you get a massive sidewall, so don't worry about breaking them. They're really stiff. I did 180s and stuff that I hadn't done in ages, and I didn't bend it or break the carbon, so really stiff wheels, really good, and they create this awesome amount, this massive shape on the tire, a lot of air volume in there, and that just makes the bike feel like you're riding on clouds, like super grippy clouds, but it's really comfortable. The rest of the build isn't too shabby either, so there are Shimano XT brakes front and rear, the 2-pot model calipers. They're easy to adjust for your personal likings. They're quite easy to modulate, but they're not always as positive feeling. That's a recent issue that a lot of Shimano brakes have. And then my bike comes with a dropper post. So this is a Fox transfer standard, so no Kashima coating dropper post. What kind of annoys me is that it only comes with 100mm of travel. It's just not enough. And because of the limited amount of travel and this bike being one size too small for me, I actually had to run it past the minimum insertion line as well. But like with just about everything on this bike, you can change it. So if you want 150 millimeters of drop, that's no problem. The cockpit is also really neat looking. So it's the same titanium, same anodization as the rest of the frame. And there's also a 3T stem on there. It's not super short, but it's okay for the type of riding we do here. The grips are foam grips. I'm not a big fan of those, but I'll forgive that because of the grip shifter that you get with a Pinion gearbox. About the gearbox then, because that is one of the unique selling points with this bicycle. So this is the Pinion P1.12. It offers 600% of range. So compare that to 500 on SRAM Eagle or 540 on 2x Shimano systems. You get way more range, but there are only 12 speeds and they are evenly spaced. So at certain speeds, you're not going to find the perfect gear. My solution, just pedal a bit harder and ride at a different speed. Now I know that is a bit of a weird comment to make, but to be honest, the shifting with this bike is so precise and so fast that it's really hard to get a wrong gear. And if you do, you can easily shift it into the right gear in an instant. It's way faster than derailleur bikes. As a negative though, you can't shift under power. So you can do perfect shifting when you're still pedaling, but you can't shift under a lot of power. What I found is if you get the timing right, you can get away with only like a quarter of a pedal stroke that you're off power. And in that regard, it's kind of similar almost to a derailleur bike. Now, while I love the feel of this bike and just how much fun it is, what's my favorite, like by far my favorite, is how little maintenance this bike needs. With derailleur based bicycles, every ride you're cleaning it and then drying it and then lubing it, and there's so much work going on that if you go for a 1 hour ride, you spend another hour cleaning your bike. So with this one, none of that. All you have to do is change the oil in the gearbox every year or every 10,000 kilometers. And if you live in a really wet, muddy country like I do, that's a massive plus. Like, it's going to be really awful to go back to my own bike, even though that's got a Shimano XTR drivetrain. I really prefer this one because there's basically no maintenance. Now at this point you're probably thinking Lawrence is being way too positive, he's getting paid to do this video. And you're wrong. There are a few things that I don't like with this bike and I'm not getting paid. First up, the frame itself. Because it's a belt drive, you need a way to tension the belt. And that means removing the rear wheel is a bit cumbersome. So if you travel with your bike a lot, it may not be for you because you have to take out 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts on either side just to get the wheel out and then put it back in, and then you have to retension the belt. So from that standpoint, it's not perfect. And then a second gripe that I have with this bike is that pinion shifter. It requires 2 cables and it makes the front look a bit messier than it really should look. Also, I prefer trigger shifters, so please Pinion, make an electric trigger shifter for this. Overall though, I love this bike. I haven't had this much fun on a bike in ages. Now I know I said that as well with my e-bike video, but it's a different type of fun. The e-bike was fun because it was scary and way too fast. This bike is fun because it's a very communicative bike. And I know everyone in their videos or reviews talks about being confidence inspiring and blah blah blah, all that sort of marketing stuff. What's nice is how communicative this bike is. Like, you know exactly what the bike is doing and what the bike is capable of. And for me personally, that meant doing stuff that I wouldn't do on even my own bike that I've been riding for well over a year now. Stuff like dropping massive stair gaps or riding up staircases as well. I've gone faster down muddy downhill sections on this bike than I've ever thought was possible. And that's not because the bike is maybe really good at it, because obviously plus tires are quite horrible in mud. It's just because I feel really confident on the bike, and it's almost like the bike is always like poking you, like, come on Lawrence, just do that, it's gonna be fun, you probably won't die, just do it. And I love that, and that's what makes mountain biking fun. So yeah, this bike is really expensive and it's only going to be for the lucky few, but if you are in a position to buy a bicycle like the Locum Pinion, then go ahead and do it, you really won't regret it. It's so comfortable, it's fast, and it's easy to do whatever with. It'll feel at home doing like a cross-country tour or going to the bike park and dropping off of massive stuff. The bike is very capable and it's probably a really awesome purchase if you can afford it. So anyway guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button and go check out my Strava and my Twitter, and also the Instagram, where I post a lot of great looking bike pictures. For now, massive thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.